In the top stories, captured man tests negative for COVID-19. Appropriation Committee in Jamaica says vaccination of tourism workers is important. And India COVID-19 cases above 24 million as mutant spreads across region. Hello and welcome to the ZIZ Midday Newscast. Today is Friday, the 14th of May, 2021. I'm Jason Davis. Nationally, the man who entered the Federation on Tuesday without passing through a legal port of entry and was apprehended by the police on Thursday morning has tested negative for COVID-19. According to a police report, the individual, who is a national of St. Kitts and Nevis, has been placed at a government-designated quarantine site under guard. He'll be tested again at the end of 14 days. The police say he was found in a house in the Buckley's development area sometime after 3 a.m. on May 13. The search for the man began on May 11 after the police received information about a fishing vessel landing at Limekiln Bay and an individual with a suitcase getting off the vessel and running into the Limekiln village area. The vessel was taken into custody by the St. Kitts Nevis Coast Guard. Investigations so far have revealed that it was stolen in Antigua and Barbuda on May 10. Is 5 gallons of gas actually 5 gallons of gas? And how do we know that consumers aren't being robbed? Well, that's the job of the Metrology unit at the Bureau of Standards, to ensure that measurements are accurate. Metrology is the science of measurement, and in the case of gasoline pumps, checks are carried out every 6 months to ensure that they function as they should. On Friday morning, the Green Valley gas station was due its testing with the Bureau, where Iron Ordain, a chemical engineer and head of the Metrology unit, explained the process.
We verify that we conduct a series of tests based on an international standard, and from that from those measurements taken, we would either pass or fail each nozzle. So each nozzle within the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis has already been verified by the St. Kitts and Nevis Bureau of Standards. Once you see the St. Kitts and Nevis Bureau of Standards sticker, then you could have that surety that you are getting what you paid for. Unfortunately, we cannot do much about the rising cost of gasoline, but we can ensure that if you buy a gallon of gas, you're actually getting a gallon of gas.
Verification is also carried out by the Metrology unit to ensure that scales are calibrated correctly, and they are also responsible for carrying out environmental tests. Friday's gas pump checks come ahead of World Metrology Day, Thursday, 20th of May. In other news, Nurses Week activities continued on Thursday night with a karaoke competition at Barry's Bar and Grill at Bird Rock. Held in 2 categories, solo and duet, nurses and members of the public were invited to register and step up to the mic to compete for cash and prizes. At the end of the evening, Nelissa Hutchinson won the solo category, and Jason Davis and Moshina Kramer won the duets segment. Nurses Week activities continue with other events slated. We now move on to the regional scene. In Jamaica, just over 5,000 tourism workers have so far been vaccinated. That's the word from the local tourism industry. But in making Jamaica destination assurance, members of the Public Administration and Appropriation Committee say it's important for tourism workers to get their jab if Jamaica should rebound quickly from the economic fallout. More in this CVM News report.
Before COVID-19, Jamaica's thriving tourism industry employed over 170,000 workers. Currently, only about 85,000 of them still have a job. When the members of the Tourism Ministry sat before the Public Administration and Appropriations Committee on Wednesday, initially they were unable to state the number of tourism workers who have received a dose of the vaccine. PAAC Chairman Michael Phillips says it was unacceptable, as vaccination is crucial in giving Jamaica destination assurance. The Permanent Secretary later confirmed that of the more than 85,000 workers currently employed, only about 5,759 have been vaccinated.
There's ongoing sensitization, and we expect greater take-up.
Once it is available.
When it's available. Because remember, availability is also a challenge.
Yeah,
remember that.
It's really the availability that
so
is...
So it's with availability. But the interest is there for enough tourism workers.
As it relates to set cash, some tourism stakeholders are yet to receive the money that was promised to them by the government in 2020.
It affects workers in different ways, or those who are not working. So when persons feel shafted, this is some getting and some not getting, it will affect even the worker turnout in the industry itself. So for me, the ministry, it is critical that the ministry also stays on top of this, because in a sense it doesn't affect the Ministry of Finance, it affects the Ministry of Tourism and its numbers.
In the meantime, the tourism ministry says it's been using the global slowdown in the market to rebrand Jamaica on all levels, to include human resource, health security, and the overall service to accelerate recovery. Jamila Maitland for CVM Live.
In St. Lucia, on Wednesday, a man entered the Choiseul Secondary School wielding a cutlass after his 14-year-old sister was reportedly punched in the face by a male student. The chief education officer says relevant authorities are investigating the matter. Faculty, staff, and the student body have been offered counseling services. More in this report.
A quiet Wednesday afternoon at the Choiseul Secondary School took a horrible turn after an altercation between three parties. Family members tell Newsforce that one male student was looking to fight with a young girl's cousin. This is when she stepped in. The young woman, who was allegedly placed in a chokehold, reportedly threw juice onto her attacker, who responded by punching her in the face. The impact was so intense, she blacked out. Her brother, who then got wind of the brutal attack, reportedly headed straight to the school with cutlass in hand in search of the young man who left his sister nursing a black eye. Newsforce learned that the young girl is suffering from severe pain to her face and has to see an eye specialist. HTS Newsforce reached out to the Chief Education Officer, Dr. Fiona Philip Meyer.
We just wish to express our sadness at the incident that happened. It is a situation that is being dealt with by the appropriate authorities.
Dr. Philip Meyer, in a phone interview, while not going into specifics about the situation, says education officials paid a visit to the Choiseul Secondary School on Thursday to ensure the well-being of students, faculty and staff after the traumatizing turn of events.
In the capacity of Chief Education Officer, I visited the school together with the District Education Officer, had a discussion with principals and members of staff. Our staff are getting necessary support in terms of counseling services, and as a department we remain committed to always work with the appropriate and relevant authorities at whatever situations that present to us.
The Chief Education Officer says education officials remain committed to supporting the wider school population after the harrowing ordeal. Meanwhile, the public education official also addressed another vexing situation relating to the robbery and attack of a student of the Leon Hess Secondary School in the middle of the city of Castries.
We are again saddened by and this particular event that impacted a student and other students that we've known of, but we really want to reiterate the need for law enforcement to work with all stakeholders to ensure the safety of everyone, and more specifically for us, our students.
Police eventually arrested the Choiseul School cutlass-wielding intruder, who remains in custody. Solange Alfred, HTS Newsforce.
Internationally, India's surge in COVID-19 infections has spilled over to its neighbors. It's making South Asia the epicenter of the latest coronavirus wave. Al Jazeera's Florence Loy reports.
Nepal's health services are overwhelmed. In government hospitals, doctors are treating patients on corridor floors and in waiting rooms. Several other hospitals in the capital, Kathmandu, have had to turn away new patients because of a lack of beds and oxygen. The Himalayan country is reeling from a second wave of infections that started last month after migrant workers returned from India. In the last few days, it's recorded its highest number of new cases and deaths.
Our biggest enemy right now is COVID-19. To fight this big enemy, the nation needs to come together and all the forces need to unite for the battle.
Pakistan, already battling a third wave, imposed the most severe restrictions in over a year by ordering a 9-day shutdown during the Eid holiday.
Our businesses have been affected due to the early and strict lockdown by the government, but now slowly we are recovering by following the standard precautions.
The government fears it too may not be able to cope if cases surge due to a possible lack of ventilators and oxygen. Bangladesh's second wave appears to have peaked. The country was averaging around 100 deaths a day in the third week of April.
Besides the 2 graves of my immediate family members that you can see here, there are many other graves of my relatives, friends and their family members. It's really heartbreaking.
Tough restrictions imposed mid-April have helped to bring numbers down. But health experts fear the virus may surge again after tens of thousands defied a travel ban to return home for Eid celebrations this week. Bangladesh health authorities detected the highly infectious Indian coronavirus variant last week. Amnesty International says the new surge in cases poses a huge challenge to a region that's already struggling to vaccinate its population. It's urging the international community come together to ensure equitable access to vaccines. Florence Louis, Al Jazeera.
U.S. President Joe Biden says the East Coast fuel shortages will end in a few days as the country's largest fuel pipeline network is restarted. Colonial Pipeline was hit by a cyber attack last week, affecting supplies and causing panic buying. The firm reportedly paid hackers $5 million in untraceable cryptocurrency as ransom. Al Jazeera's Patty Culhane reports.
A major oil pipeline shut down and the government told people not to panic. It didn't work. Videos like these are all over social media, prompting a government agency to warn this is a really bad idea. The plastic will melt and bad things can happen. But all along the East Coast, people waited in long lines to get gas, and some stocked up in any container they could find. Again, bad idea. But the panic could soon be subsiding. The pipeline that was shut down after hackers infiltrated the computers of Colonial Pipeline has been restarted. There are reports that the company paid almost $5 million in ransom.
It continues to be the position of the federal government, the FBI, that it is not in the interests of the private sector for companies to pay ransom because it incentivizes these actions.
And President Joe Biden has signed an executive order demanding that everyone selling software to the federal government has to meet certain cybersecurity standards. But Biden says he can't make private companies do the same.
Private entities are in charge of their own cybersecurity. And we know what they need. They need greater private sector investment in cybersecurity. And that's why we launched a new public-private initiative in April.
Even with the oil flowing again, it will take days or weeks to refill the tanks. With half of all gas stations dry in Georgia, almost 70% in North Carolina, and almost 73% in Washington, D.C. As people continue to panic buy and more stations run dry, reinforcing the idea that there is something to worry about, regardless of what the government says is a very bad idea for a temporary problem. Patty Culhane, Al Jazeera.
And now for the weather. Current conditions are partly cloudy with a slight haze. Winds are a moderate breeze of 14 miles per hour from the east-southeast. The temperature is 30 degrees Celsius or 87 degrees Fahrenheit. Seas are moderate with waves of 3 to 5 feet. The weather forecast in St. Kitts and Nevis for today says to expect partly sunny skies with a 60% or moderate chance of showers, and for tonight partly cloudy skies with a 40% or moderate chance of showers. Sunset today will be at 6:35 p.m., sunrise tomorrow at 5:40 a.m. And that brings us to the end of the ZIZ Midday newscast. Join us this evening for these stories and more in detail. Thank you for tuning in. I'm Jason Davis.